The championships have attracted about 180 entrants from all over Australia. Students from Year 7 to 12 are eligible to enter, and they've come with vessels of all shapes and sizes. The array of craft includes small Sados and Vaucluse juniors, windsurfers, Hobie Cats, 16-footers and trailer sailors. Today was the invitation race, which will be followed by 4 heats raced over the next 4 days. Although today's breeze was only light, a northeasterly of about 5 knots, some crews got their spinnakers in a tangle as the breeze freshened. The students are all racing in divisions depending on their type of boat. Some boats such as Lasers, NS14s and Maricats have enough starters for a class. The overall winner will be worked out on a complex handicap system based on a formula fed into a computer.
Adam John Ralph disappeared from his home on Harlow Street, Belmont North at 5 o'clock yesterday morning. Detectives believe there is more to the case than a simple runaway.
On that particular day, yesterday, he was aware that he and his family were travelling to Sydney to see their grandmother, his grandmother. And the boy is very fond of his grandmother, and it's quite out of character for him to go missing and not participate in the family trip to Sydney.
Adam Ralph wasn't the only person to go missing that morning. 47-year-old Maxwell Roy Green of Belmont North was last seen at his home at 5 o'clock on the same day. Police are equally puzzled by this disappearance.
There's been no suggestion in the past that he's unhappy at home, so we believe that it's completely out of character for him also.
Police are trying to locate Green's car, a 1971 Holden Torana similar to this, registration NMZ682. Anyone able to help in the search should call either Belmont or Newcastle Police.
Urban Transit Sydney Harbour ferries, once built and launched in the Hunter, are making a comeback. Passengers will have the chance to ride aboard the Sirius and the Supply on Lake Macquarie later this month.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
In the news tonight, a report on Siamese twin boys who were born last year and separated in an American hospital. They have made a good recovery and will soon be able to go home to West Germany.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Already being done on the new low-level bridge.
This afternoon, the managing director of Carrington Slipways, Don Laverick, said the consortium is pushing ahead with its bid and will have no trouble replacing A&I. The group is basing its bid on this Dutch multi-purpose frigate designed by Royal Shelter, which would have to be modified to satisfy the Australian and New Zealand Navy's demand, which is for 8 and 4 frigates respectively. 4 of the vessels are already under construction in the Netherlands for the Dutch Navy. A spokesman for Defence Minister Beazley said today that the internal difficulties experienced by AWS led to the government holding off on demanding design definition proposals, which were to have been submitted this week. Mr Laverick is undaunted by the apparent turmoil.
We will have to reorganise the portion of the work that was going to be done by A&I. That is true, yes.
Which is what?
The part of the work which is the integrated logistics support and the financial clout that A&I have.
That can be replaced?
Yes, there are plenty of companies in Australia with that expertise. Not all in one place as A&I had it with their Cockatoo dockyard personnel, but there are certainly other companies that can do that work just as well, or in some cases better.
And you're confident of recruiting some company or companies to replace ANI?
Yes, there are people beating a path to our door.
And you're still confident that these frigates will be built in Newcastle?
Well, it's still a very tough competition. It's not a walk-up start, as we would say. We have to do a lot of work, and we have to do it well in order to win this contract. There's no questions of it being handed to us on a plate. We believe we've got the best design and the best design agent to work with and the best consortium.
And you don't think the government might be so worried about what's gone on that it might call fresh tenders?
We have assurance that provided the other 4 members are prepared to go on, the government will accept that.
In the news tonight, today's first day of operation for the Nelson Bay Polyclinic is a far cry from the opening day celebrations. Today the clinic stands empty, with doctors refusing to work there or refer their patients because of a dispute with the Department of Health. For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Richard Face was philosophical today when asked his reaction to the turn of events, but says the study tour is just one of a number on offer, and he is a prime mover in getting access for independence to trips of far more value to Mr Hatton.
I think that there is a case for independence, and I've in fact been one of the ones that have been leading the charge for them to get some recognition within the Parliament, and that's based on Commonwealth parliamentary trips that come around each year. And they're 6 weeks duration, and they're of immense value, and they would be to an independent. And I believe if there's some mechanism set up to allow these people to participate in those trips after being there a period of time, it should happen. This particular one, of course, is a trip that has usually been given over the years to people that want to go and learn more about the forms and the procedures of Parliament. And
Mr Face has had a number of upsets recently, only retaining the Charlestown seat by a slender 63 votes after a recount. But he still managed to smile over this latest Liberal Party effort to put him off his stride.
In political life you can have ups and downs. I've seen that in the events of the last month. But the fact is that it would have been of immense value to the Parliament, not so much to Richard Face. But the fact is that if it doesn't occur, well, of course, it's not the end of the world.
It was a somewhat bleak scene today as the rain continued to drench the already saturated ground at the International Sports Centre. A team were working flat out trying to clear the debris that lined the hill, a legacy of the 30,000 plus crowd that turned up for Sunday's clash against the Brisbane Broncos.
Into the in-goal area,
Despite
Gene Miles
Newcastle's
busts
10 to
out.
24 loss, Newcastle Knight administrators are satisfied with the tenacious effort put in by the Knights in the blue-coat conditions.
We were very happy with the whole week, and actually the crowd firstly was beyond our wildest dreams. While we said all along we'd get 30, we thought that we'd be battling with the weather the way it was. The response from the public in Newcastle was just incredible, you know. As far as the football is concerned, while we were beaten, we're well satisfied with our team the way they're going at present. They give all, they never give up, and I think the people in Newcastle won't be discouraged by their performance on Sunday.
But the Knights have little time for post-mortems. They're already gearing up for the next round of the Panasonic Cup on Wednesday, when they'll pit their strength against Manly. With reports that Manly plan to rest some of its key players, Graham Hards is confident that Newcastle will put in a tough showing. And this game might see the controversial synthetic ball in use for the first time this season.
The New South Wales Rugby League have now given the clubs the option of using the wet weather ball, and if the conditions prevail that way, it's still got to be an agreement of both clubs. We haven't decided yet whether we'll agree to use it or not. We'll wait till Wednesday and see, but by the same token, Manly must agree also to use the new synthetic football, otherwise we use the normal leather football.
I understand that you had the option of using it on the
National Safety Council already operates an extensive air sea rescue division in Newcastle as part of its service contract with the RAAF. That division could now be dramatically expanded. Pending discussions with the Maritime Services Board, the National Safety Council hopes to relocate its maritime headquarters from Port Welshpool in South Gippsland to Newcastle, centralising their maritime operations. A Safety Council spokesman said it was too early to give details of the facilities being moved here, but they would almost definitely include the 35-metre rescue vessel Blue Nabilla. It's equipped with a helicopter landing pad, an 8-man decompression chamber, and is likely to be outfitted with advanced sonar technology. Other equipment at Port Welshpool includes rigid inflatable rescue boats and the Council's training ketch. If the move goes ahead, the local division will acquire millions of dollars worth of new equipment and a greatly expanded support staff. A Safety Council spokesman said detailed talks with the Maritime Services Board will start within days and a final decision will be known within a fortnight.
This week, we examine the issue of Longwall Mining. Bolton Point residents bitterly oppose mining under their homes. Coal companies say they have nothing to fear. And we meet Larry Pickering, the millionaire cartoonist, who'd much rather be training racehorses on the Central Coast.
Barton Lynch is recognised as one of Australia's top surfers. Although he's run into problems in the last 2 rounds of the World Championship, he could still take the title if everything went right for him in the final round at Manly this weekend. Like most professional sportsmen, Barton is safety conscious, and he is annoyed that many young surfers are finding a simple safety device priced out of their reach because of import duty and sales tax. The device is a silicon rubber tip which renders the sharp nose of a surfboard far less likely to cause injury. The modification is encouraged by one branch of government but penalised by another. The only source of the tips at present is Hawaii, and maximum import duty and sales tax mean surfers have to pay at least $15 for this kind of safety, a seemingly high price for such a small item.
Because the surfboard is used for recreation, these aren't, classified as a safety item, which is quite amazing to me,
There's a lot of suggestion that the government is sometimes out of touch with the public. This seems a pretty good instance of it.
I'd say so, yeah. It seems like it. I mean, they're such a sensible item. They're going to save a lot of people. They already have saved a lot of people here in Australia and overseas, and it's a shame that they are quite expensive, and the government are not helping in any way to reduce the price.
Well, of course, you've got a battle next weekend that goes beyond government bureaucrats. It's a battle for that World Championship. You're in there with a chance, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I think it's a little more difficult than the government bureaucrats. It's, I'm in 3rd place at the moment, and I've got to beat the 2 guys in front of me by at least 2 places to win the title, which is possible. It's totally possible, but the worst part about it is I've got to rely on them losing at some stage, which isn't all that, doesn't give you that much confidence. But I know I'm surfing well. I've got a week now to get ready for it, and when the time comes, I'll give it a good shake.
Okay. That'll be great.
Organisers claim the Combined Schools Variety Spectacular is the only event of its kind in the world. Started in 1984, the Spectacular brings together more than 2,000 student actors, dancers, musicians and gymnasts. They perform in school groups, with international artists and in combined presentations. This year's Spectacular includes John Williamson, Rolf Harris, members of the Australian Opera and students from more than 100 state primary and high schools from across New South Wales.
For children to perform in that sort of a venue in front of 10,000 people and meeting 2,000 children from all around the rest of the state, it is that wonderful thing of working with other people. It gives them self-confidence, and the ability to express themselves very much better, and that wonderful thing of cooperating and working on something with other people. So
Mary Lopez is producer and director of the spectacular. She's in the Hunter this week auditioning acts for parts in the concert. Today the Newcastle High School Classical Ballet Troupe was under the spotlight. Newcastle High is the only school in the state which teaches classical ballet as an elective subject, and the dancers have been regular performers at the spectacular since 1985. 14 Hunter schools were represented last year, according to Mrs Lopez, an indication of the quality of the performing arts in the region.
The standard of work that comes out of the Hunter in music and dance is wonderful. The bands, particularly here in the Hunter, are just quite amazing. There are so many of them.
And the event itself is...
The insects with the nasty sting need stagnant pools to multiply in. Heavy rain during the past few weeks and warm temperatures have created a perfect environment for breeding.
Well, the mosquitoes are more severe this time of the year than they were this time last year. So this will extend for another month at least, and hopefully we can get on top of them by then.
Newcastle supports many mosquito types. One of the most vicious is the salt marsh variety, known unaffectionately as the Hexham Grey. They breed in trouble spots like Kooragang Island. High tides force water into the low-lying salt marsh pans. The water can't drain away and the mosquitoes quickly multiply. They're great travellers, with the help of the wind moving distances of up to 30 kilometres. Contrary to popular belief, the Shortland wetlands is not considered a problem spot. Although mosquitoes breed there, natural predators keep the numbers down. Bugs such as damselfly nymphs, waterboat men and back swimmers gobble the mosquito wrigglers down, ably assisted by dragonflies and fish. Stagnant areas like the tidal pools at Kooragang are unable to support predators and the mosquito population explodes. The council says it expects the season to continue for several weeks and is carefully monitoring the situation.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of many similar sites now confronting vegetable growers in the Lower Hunter. Hundreds of hectares of crops, many which were due to be harvested, lie rotting in waterlogged fields, ruined not by floodwaters but by too much rain. One of the worst hit in the East Maitland area is Ray Mudd. Ray estimates he's lost all of his 80,000 cabbages and consequently much of his income until he can harvest again in several months.
Well, I think the cabbage we've got in there, we've lost, I'd say, nearly every cabbage there, which could have amounted to about $25,000 worth of produce. And the collies, there's going to be a considerable lot of collies lost. I wouldn't like to venture as to what they would be worth.
Ray says more than 200 millimetres of rain has fallen on his 24 hectares in the last 2 weeks. And even if the rain stops now, he says there is little chance of salvaging any of his cauliflowers, broccoli or potatoes.
Well, if you get the hot weather, this can affect them adversely also. It'll get steamy and they will deteriorate just as fast. You'll see them sort of deteriorate overnight then, and they'll be standing up one day and collapse the next morning.
According to Ray, the problems facing local growers will be heightened by the importation of produce from other areas, limiting the benefits of higher
Newcastle
prices.
Markets. But if there's plenty available, say in Queensland, Victoria, they can bring them into state in semi-trailers in 24 hours and the market will not improve much for the local grower. Some of the agents in Newcastle send the vehicles to other states and bring a load back, so they've got a supply to their customers here. But that doesn't help the local grower.
The effects of the short supply are already being felt at the Newcastle regional markets. This week's sales saw price increases of up to 100% on quality crops, and Secretary-Manager Peter Holmes says the full extent of the impact won't be clear for some time.
But what has happened is that produce that was planted, say, 5 weeks ago to mature it in spring has been destroyed. So these price hikes you're going to see in the next 2 or 3 weeks will tend to remain so for the next, 3 or 4 months.
And how much difference Mr Holmes says it's regrettable that trucking produce into the area disadvantages local growers, but says the market's first commitment is to business.
That's unfortunate, but what we have to look after is the consumer. The consumer in 1988, and it's, you know, the last couple of years, are tending to want a quality product, and that's, of course, what we would like to supply.
But there may be some relief in sight for growers affected by the rain. Under a package announced by the Premier last week, primary producers in the North Coast area who lost produce through the floods can apply for loans of up to $40,000 at 6% interest through the State Bank. The Premier's department says it is now awaiting an assessment of the Hunter region, and the same terms may apply to producers affected by storm damage, covering such cases as Ray Mudd's. Despite his losses, Ray was still able to show that one thing the rain can't dampen is a sense of humour. So what do you really need? What do farmers around the area really need now?
Lotto. But weather-wise, we don't want real hot.
Longwall Mining is an issue that incites great controversy, especially when it's carried out under residential areas. In locations where it has gone ahead, some residents point to resulting damage and say it should not be allowed to continue. Last night, a full-scale inquiry got underway before Mr Justice John Day at the Lake Macquarie Council Chambers. It generated a great deal of interest, with the council chambers full to capacity and people sitting on virtually every bit of floor space in the public gallery. Many people are seeing this inquiry as somewhat of a test case. Residents say if BHP is allowed to go ahead, it will open the floodgates to other coal companies to Longwall mine under homes in the area. Last night it was BHP's opportunity to present its case as to why it believes Longwall Mining should go ahead. The hearing was told that if BHP was unable to use Longwall Mining, the Pacific Colliery would be unviable and would have to close. BHP emphasised the value of the colliery. It said it employed more than 300 people, provided business to spin-off industries, contributed to government revenue and, most importantly, to export earnings. BHP also went to some lengths to allay fears about the effect of subsidence in the area. It says the subsidence effect can be predicted with precision. If any damage did occur, it would be slight or negligible. It claimed it would have an insignificant impact on the main Northern Rail line. Some of the resident groups claim that BHP's idea of slight and negligible was different to their own, but BHP's geologist assured the hearing that their definitions were part of a world-recognised damage classification. The hearing continues tonight and into next week.
The Australian companies have signed deals to sell coal to Japanese steel mills for $2.90 a tonne, a price drop compared to the relative levels of the yen and the dollar. The industry believes the competition is fierce and they have no choice. Mining Industry Council spokesman Murray McMillan says production worldwide is increasing and will soon surpass demand.
Well, I think that intervention would have a detrimental effect in that the Japanese would see the formation of what they'd regard as a cartel, and they would simply turn their buying elsewhere.
The federal government says the Japanese could have been persuaded to pay more, and they plan to intervene in the sale. Mr McMillan says that won't help.
The thing that drives the coal price is the market, and unfortunately in the international coal market, Australia, while being the biggest single exporter of coal, is still only supplies about 27% of the coal market, and that makes it a price taker rather than a price setter. So anything the government did about regulating prices would have no effect whatsoever, and in fact it could be detrimental.
As far as the politicians are concerned, the coal industry is facing an uphill battle against government intervention. The opposition, normally a staunch supporter of the free market, says the Japanese deal is an exception, and the Australian Democrats say Labor shouldn't have relinquished control on the market in the first place.
This week, the saga of the Babies Pavilion. Should the 1930s Spanish architecture be preserved or demolished and replaced by a new $5 million facility proposed by a Newcastle developer? and a special report on AIDS in the Hunter, featuring a frank and honest interview with a local sufferer of the killer virus.